No pain, no injustice, no broken system justifies taking another person's life. Nothing could justify taking another person's life. So, how could we have imagined this greater? What if instead of choosing violence, Luigi Mangione could have had been met with a different kind of justice? What if corporate leaders, mental health professionals, legal system work together to create accountability, not just for individuals, but for institutions? Let's reimagine a story that Luigi Mangione, after years of loyal service, is suddenly led off by silver tech industries under circumstances he believes not only unfair, but deeply personal. Instead of being left to spiral alone with his grief and anger, he was offered support. Imagine this. Upon termination, Luigi's connected to a career transition coach. Imagine that. Part of a new initiative by the Silvertech's HR department. One born out of a company's commitment to responsibility offboarding. He also referred to a mental health counselor. He could also have taken part in a pilot program designed to support emotional toil on the job. Let's face it, he was hurting. He had a chronic pain. So there could have been any number of these options. And he possibly is not the only one. So he could have been the face of how do we fix a broken system. When someone is suffering from chronic pain, we do not leave them with their pain. We do not leave them in isolation. We collectively come up with solution. A month later, Luigi filed grievances believing his termination was discriminatory. Instead of being dismissed, his concerns triggered an internal review and an independent arbitration process, one that gives voice to employees who feel unheard. That's what could have happened. In this version of the story, CEO Brian Thompson is an untouchable executive. His leaders' accountability to the system around him. When patterns of executive misconduct begin to surface, the board steps in, right? Shouldn't the board have stepped in and investigated this drastic move from $12 billion to $281 billion? Investigation could have been launched. Transparency becomes the norm, not the exception. Luigi should never feel like violence would have been the only option for him, because he would have been given another option. He's not consumed by a need for revenge, because he could have been given a counselor where he could have vented his frustration, and a career coach who would have guided him along a path that would have taken a different turn, because he would have received something powerful. He would have received validation. He would have received support. He would have received a path forward. Now, this isn't just a story made in headlines, but it's a story we could write. If we rethink how we feel with workplace trauma and injustice and power, this isn't just one man's breaking point. It's about the cracks in the system that led him there. And haven't you thought of it in some way yourself? Luigi Mangione didn't have to become a headline. Brian Thompson didn't have to become a victim. And we as society don't have to keep repeating these patterns. Let's imagine greater. Let's build systems where people don't fall through the crack, where justice doesn't come from a gun, but from humanity.
A brand new episode of Imagine Greater with Michelle Bethel-Gibson drops next week.
In that journey, you ask God, why? Why would you take my only child? I remember a friend of mine saying to me, she said, Michelle, there's no name. And I was like, what do you mean there's no name? She said, when children lose parents, there's orphan. They're called orphans. When a spouse dies, the man is called a widower and the woman is called a widow. But when a parent loses a child, there's no name, because it's unheard of. And I just sat with that. There is no name. So how do I come back from that?
Subscribe or follow to get notified.